Hi, I'm Ros Cardinal, Managing Director of Shaping Change, and welcome to this webinar on conflict resolution. Let's get started. It's a fact that wherever two or more people are together, there's the possibility of conflict happening. What we're going to cover in this webinar is a 6-step process that you can use to modify and resolve conflicts of any size. You'll also learn crucial conflict resolution skills, including dealing with anger and using the agreement frame. So the workshop objectives. You'll understand what conflict and conflict resolution mean. You'll understand all 6 phases of the conflict resolution process. You'll understand the 5 main styles of conflict resolution. Be able to adapt the process for all types of conflict. Be able to break out parts of the process and use these tools to prevent conflict. Be able to use basic communication tools, such as the agreement frame and open questions. And be able to use basic anger and stress management techniques. Now let's talk about conflict. So we're going to answer true or false for each of the questions. Conflict is always negative. This is actually false. Although conflict is often unpleasant, it can actually be a catalyst for positive change. Conflict is always violent. That's also false. When managed properly, conflict can be peaceful and productive. Conflict is inevitable. This is true. Conflict occurs whenever 2 or more people interact. In fact, it's even possible to have an inner conflict with yourself. Anyone can experience conflict. That's also true. Conflict happens to everyone, so it's important to be prepared. People often assume that conflict is always negative. That's not true. People are inherently different, and conflict simply happens when those differences start to come to light. Viewing conflict in this way can help us maximise the possible positive outcomes of the problem that's at hand. And if we're equipped with a conflict resolution process, people can actually learn how to explore and understand those differences and use them to interact in a more positive and productive way. The Random House Dictionary defines conflict as to come into collision or disagreement, be contradictory, at variance, or in opposition, or clash. So let's look at examples of conflict. It can include things like 2 sales reps are arguing over who gets the latest customer. A team of employees is upset with their manager over a recent scheduling change. A group of managers can't decide who's going to get the latest project assignment. And although we're going to focus primarily on workplace conflict, the tools we cover can also be used in personal situations as well. Conflict can also be healthy. Think about how conflict may increase motivation in these scenarios. 2 companies vying for the top market share of a particular product. Several sales teams working to get to first place. 6 hockey teams working towards winning a championship. These types of drivers can result in greater success, whether success means a better product, better teamwork, better processes, lower prices, trophies or medals. Remember, everybody experiences conflict. It's how you deal with it that's important. Although there are many processes available, we've adapted one process that you can use for any situation. You'll even be able to use these tools to prevent conflict and help other people work through conflict. So let's just look at some of the key terms. An apparent conflict is a situation where the conflict's in the open. And a hidden conflict is obviously a situation where the conflict's not in the open. Mediator is an impartial person who conducts a process to resolve differences, and these people are usually outside of your organisation. A mediation is the process that resolves the differences, and like I said, conducted by an impartial third party. Dispute resolution is the name given to any process aimed at resolving differences between 2 parties. Conflict can come in many forms, obviously, and our process is going to help you in any situation. Now, although we've outlined the various conflict resolution phases in a particular order and with a particular grouping, it doesn't mean you have to use all the phases all the time. Near the end of the workshop, we're going to look at some of these steps as individual tools. But basically, this is the framework. Create an effective atmosphere by neutralising emotions, setting ground rules, and setting the time and place. Creating a mutual understanding, which is identifying needs for me, them, and for us. Focus on individual and shared needs. Find common ground, build positive energy and goodwill, and strengthen the partnership. Get to the root cause, examine root causes, create a fishbone diagram for complex issues, identify opportunities for forgiveness, identify the benefits of resolution. Then we generate options. We don't evaluate at this stage. Create mutual gain options and mutual option solutions and dig deeper into our options. And then finally, we build a solution. We create criteria, create a shortlist, choose a solution, and finally, we build a plan. There are 5 widely accepted styles of resolving conflicts that people use. They were originally developed, or not developed, but they were described by Kenneth Thomas and Ralph Kilman in the 1970s. And we've designed our conflict resolution process so it can be used in conjunction with these styles. And although we promote a collaborative style throughout the workshop, there are going to be instances where it's not appropriate. For example, it may be too time consuming if the issue is really insignificant. Understanding all 5 styles that people use and knowing when you can use them is an important part of successful conflict resolution. Now we'll go through those styles. So we'll look first at collaborating. This is the approach that we will use during this workshop. With this approach, the parties in conflict work together to develop a win-win solution. And it promotes assertiveness rather than aggressiveness or passiveness. It's entirely appropriate when the situation is not urgent, an important decision needs to be made, the conflict involves a large number of people or people across different teams, and previous conflict resolution attempts have failed. And it may not be as appropriate when the decision needs to be made urgently or the matter is really trivial to all the people that are involved. Now the second style is competing. With a competitive approach, the person in conflict is taking a firm stand. They're competing with the other party for power, and they typically win unless they're up against someone else who's also competing. This style is often seen as aggressive, and it can often be the cause of other people in the conflict feeling injured or even stepped on. Now this style is appropriate when a decision needs to be made quickly, so for example in an emergency. If an unpopular decision needs to be made. If someone's trying to take advantage of a situation. And the style's not appropriate when people are feeling sensitive about conflict or the situation's not urgent. With the compromising approach, each person in the conflict gives up something that contributes towards the conflict resolution. So it's appropriate when a decision needs to be made sooner rather than later, meaning the situation is important, but it's not necessarily urgent. Resolving the conflict is more important than having each individual win. Power between people in the conflict is equal. It's not appropriate when there's a wide variety of important needs that need to be met. The situation is extremely urgent, and if one person holds more power than the other. The accommodating style is one of the most passive conflict resolution styles. With this style, one of the parties in conflict gives up what they want so the other person can have what they want. In general, this style isn't very effective, but it can be appropriate in certain scenarios. It could be appropriate when maintaining the relationship is more important than winning. When the issue at hand is very important to the other person but not important to you. And it's not going to be appropriate when the issue is important to you, and when accommodating will not permanently solve the problem. The last approach in the TKI model is to avoid the conflict entirely. People who use this style tend to accept decisions without question, they avoid confrontation, and they delegate difficult decisions and tasks. Avoiding is another passive approach that's typically not effective, but it does have its uses. The style is appropriate when the issue is trivial, the conflict will resolve itself on its own soon. And the style's not appropriate when the issue is really important to you or those close to you, such as your team, and if the conflict will continue or get worse without being dealt with.